let's take a deeper look at how to use buttons and triggers to run commands in Tana. In this lesson, we will learn how to use and configure these buttons and triggers, and also understand two important concepts, which are node filters and command groups. So let's get started. The first thing we will do is to run buttons. So the first thing we will cover are buttons. As you can see here, buttons can be added to super tags, and they can also be added to specific nodes. Now let's open up our example, and let's start by moving meetings around. So the idea here is to organize a couple of meetings that we would like to review. And to facilitate this process, we would like to move different meetings to a specific location where we are gathering these meetings for the review. So let's take a look at how to run these buttons and execute this command of moving a node. And here you can see that we are using this command node called move to review. And here you can see that we are using the move node system command. And in this configuration, we have this parameter of move node target, which is configured for this specific node called reviews destination. We are also configuring this command to move the original node and to remove the reference after moving the node. So we are going to run this configuration. If you want, feel free to change these values and experiment with this command in different ways. So let's close this and let's run this in order to see these buttons in action. So once we click these buttons, we are executing these commands, and as you can see, these are being moved into this node where we configured the command. So here it's worth noting that this move to review command is living inside the meeting tag. So let's configure this meeting tag and let's understand where this configuration takes place. Here we have this section of AI and commands. And once we click this and scroll down, you will see that the available commands for this super tag are showing up here. These are the ones we've seen in previous lessons, and here is the one that we are executing in this lesson right now, which is the move to review. So these commands are configured in the compact menu or in the full menu sections. So whenever you configure commands in the compact menu or the full menu of the AI and command section, they will show up as buttons. So this is a very important concept, and this is the idea of adding buttons to these super tags. Because when you do this, we can easily add a button that will help us execute this command in the exact conditions we want. Now let's click this again and let's take a look at the second way in which we can add these buttons, and that is to a specific node. Here in the reviews destination, you can see that this plain node also has a command associated with it. So here we can see the button for the add review tag, which we have the configuration down here below. And if we expand this configuration, we will see that this will run commands on all children, which is another important system command. And here the configuration is set to add tags, and specifically the review tag. So this is what we are doing here. And now let's understand how this button shows up here. And in order to configure a button inside a plain node, we need to go into the node configuration. And in order to do that, we will use the command line once again. So from here, we can open the command line using Command K, and we can type in the configure node command. And once we run this, we will open the node configuration. And in here, you will see that there is the compacts menu and the full menu versions, the same ones that we've seen in the super tag configuration, but this time here in the node configuration. And as you can see, we have added this add review command to this section of the configuration. And this means the button for the add review command is going to show up in this specific node. So let's run this and let's add the review tag to all of these other meetings. And now we have successfully added all of these review tags, and these meetings are ready to be reviewed. So with that, let's move to our next section of this lesson, which are node filters. Node filters are a very important parameter in command nodes because they determine when a button is going to show up. Or in other words, when this specific command should be available to run or not. So if we look at the node filter, you will see that we have this specific lesson added as a filter because we only want this command called move to review to show up in this lesson. And we can also see a practical node filter here, which is that this command should not appear, and this is what this not condition implies, is that it should not appear whenever it is in this node, which is the review's destination. Which means if I remove this specific filter, now the commands are showing up inside the review's destination, but whenever we click it, it's going to give us an error because the node is already at the target destination. So with that, we do want this node filter, so let's add this again. So in order to add a not condition inside a node filter, we are using a field which is configured as not. So if you create a new field and you type in not, you can choose this specific condition, and here you can add a reference to this specific node in order to configure this filter. As you can see, now the button does not show up anymore, and this means we have the configuration that we want for this specific command. Now, based on this, here is an interesting exercise for you to try, and that is to add different filters to this move to review command. And this means you can play with different field values, with text inside the name of the meeting, and even with different super tags. So I'll leave this for you to give it a try. And if you have any doubts here, feel free to send us a question on Slack or to post a comment with a specific doubt that you may have. So with that, let's move on to the next topic here, which are triggers. Let's close this and let's see the same command, which is to move nodes, but this time using command triggers. Now, this is a good time to mention that in Tana, we have 4 different categories of trigger events that you can use to run commands whenever these events happen. So the most common one is whenever a tag is added or removed. The second possibility here is when a checkbox is checked or unchecked. And we also have the possibilities of whenever a node, which is a child, is added or removed from a parent node, and also whenever an audio field is finished capturing. So in this lesson, we will cover these top 2 examples, and let's take a look at how they look in practice. So here you can see that we have configured 2 new commands, and this time we will be using the review tag as the source of these commands and where they are being configured. So here you can see we have the move back command, and this will move the meeting back to the source node whenever we remove the review tag. So here you can see the configuration for this command, which is simply to move the node to the target of the source, which is this original node that we had. And now let's look at the super tag configuration for this review tag, because that's where we are configuring this specific trigger event. So let's right click and configure this super tag. And here we're going again into the AI and commands section. Here, if you scroll down after the compact menu and the full menu, which we've seen, you will see that there's a section called Trigger Commands on Events. And this shows us these two main categories of trigger events, which is on tag added or on tag removed, and on checkbox checked and on checkbox unchecked. And here the move back command is configured in the on tag removed section. And what this means is that when we remove this tag, it will automatically run this command, and this will send this specific node to the place where we configured this command. So let's remove this tag, and here you will see that now that specific node moves back to the source node, because now it does not have the review tag, which means we do not want it to be here in our reviews destination. So this is one of the ways to run commands. You can also configure commands in the on added section, and this will of course run these different commands and configured actions whenever you add a super tag to a node, which can also be extremely useful. Now let's take a look at the second example, which is the review is done command. And in this case, you can see here we are configuring this command to be run whenever a meeting is checked. Now let's open this command configuration to see what is configured here. So whenever we check this review item, this command called review is done is going to run. This is going to move the node to this target of the review done destination. And here in the bottom, you will see this specific node that we use to configure the command. And if we come over here and check one of these meetings, you will see that it's automatically moved to this review done destination. And let's see another example. Now you can see we're organizing all of them here after we have completed this review. And just as with the tag added, you can also configure a command to run whenever you uncheck a node that already has a checked checkbox. In this case, we have not configured anything here, so whenever we remove this checkbox, it's just going to keep on as normal. And if we run this checkbox, you will see that we see the same error from before, because this node is already in the destination, so it doesn't need to be moved. Now this takes us to another interesting concept, which is the combination of node filters with triggers. Because if we configure a node filter inside a command that is being triggered with an event, this means we can control whether this command should run or not. So let's see an example for this to make more sense. Let's add a node filter here, so we can type in node filter, and here we want this automation to run only if this node is not in the review done destination, which is similar to the node filter we've seen before. So let's again type in a new field, and let's add the not expression. And here we will copy and paste again a reference to this location in Tana. And now this means that if I check this box, this command, which is configured to be run on checked, will attempt to run, but this node filter will avoid this command from running, which means we do not get an error message, and Tana did not attempt to move this node. As you can see, we can click how many times we like. It's not going to move because of this node filter. So if we move this back to where it was and now click this checkbox, you will see that it does move, so the node filter is working appropriately. And now I want to move one of these back here to this destination because I want to show you a final concept for this lesson, which are command groups. So command groups are an excellent way for you to organize your commands inside a specific super tag or inside a specific node. In order to create the command groups, we are going to use another command from the command line, which is called convert to group. And here I want to show an example where we will configure a command group inside this review tag, which we already have open here on the right. So you can take a look. This is the review tag configuration, and we are going to keep in the AI and commands section. And this time I want to create a command group inside the compact menu. And I'm going to call this command menu. And here, instead of converting to a command, I want to use the convert to group command. So let's open the command line with Command K and let's write convert to group. Here you can see this command showing up. And once we click this, you see a slight difference in the user interface. And this means this is a command group. Now, the way this will work is that inside this menu, we can add different commands. And here, I'm going to keep things simple, and I'm going to add the two commands that we have already used and we're already familiar with, which is the move back command and the review is done command. Let's copy each of them and paste their references inside this group. And here, we want to make sure that these commands are indented under the command group, such that if you collapse, you will not be able to see these commands, and if you expand, they will both be here. Now, if we scroll up, you will see that whenever we have this review tag inside a node, we now have the option to access this command menu, this one that we configured over here. And if we click this, we now have access to these two commands that were only available through automations, and now we can move this node back even without removing the review tag. And if we click the command menu, now we cannot select this specific command anymore because of the node filter. So as you can see, the node filter plays several different roles here, including not showing a button when it's not supposed to appear, not allowing a trigger to run when certain conditions are not met, and not allowing you to use this command from a command group. But in this case, we can still run the second command, which is the review is done. And with this, we are moving this command to the review done destination to signalize that this is done and we do not need to worry about this review anymore. So this demonstrates how we can use the groups of commands to organize these different commands using these menus, using these groups. And here you can use them in the compact menu, you can add them in the full menu, which will slightly change the behavior by only showing this group of commands only if you expand this node with the review super tag, and if you close, you are not going to see this group anymore. Let's leave this in the command menu for now. And as a summary, as a quick summary, we have seen all of these different components of buttons, triggers, node filters, and groups. And we have seen how all of them come together to help you create exactly the workflow that you want. And with this, Now we are ready to move into more advanced functionalities of using commands in Tana.